You've been through a lot, and that's just the party. So we want to finish up today with probably some of the most valuable information of the entire weekend. And what we're going to do, excuse me, what we're going to talk about today is all of your questions and some tidbits and fine-tuning on the flat rate material. Many of you are starting up, some of you have already started, some of you have been using flat rate for some period of time. But there are some tips, techniques, and to get a full understanding of it, Maurice is going to go through all you want to know about flat rate. Also, one of the most common questions when people switch to flat rate, and since this is the Flat Rate Clinic, we want to answer all your questions, is what are the technicians going to think about it? How are my techs going to react? What questions are they going to have? How does it work? And so we picked a technician from the Mayo organization, and he's going to answer literally any question you have. One request that I have is that you ask him all the questions on pay at the same time, all the questions on experience at the same time, because we are going to tape it. We're going to make it available for people, and you may want a copy of it if you don't remember everything or get all the notes yourself. So we want to make it easy to follow. We're talking about all the same topic at the same time, and it'll probably key a couple of things and say, oh, I've got some question on that. So try and hit all the topics at one time, then he'll go on to the next one, and you pick them. But when we pick one, let's go on and ask all the questions about that one, anything you want. Then we're going to have a little implementation session. We're going to get you committed to using the material that you learned, which is a key step. So first, Maurice on flat rate. Next, Howard, a technician from the Mayo organization right here, will answer your questions. And then after that, the implementation. So it's going to be a real icing on the cake session for you. He's going to put it all together. And let me again bring out Maurice.
Thank you. Okay, this segment is called the Flat Rate Clinic. Where we're going to take you through is everything there is to know about flat rating, how to convert over to it, all about our menu pricing system and others, your transition over to it, not only in dealing with your technicians, but also your customers, because that's a very important part, and of course yourself. So when you're done with this clinic, I hope that you eat, breathe, believe in it, and you can take it back quickly. As I look out among the group here, I see Paul, you've been on the system for a couple years, and we have others that have been on the system. They're living, walking testimonials. Ask those that are on the flat rate system how they're doing, and you'll hear the same thing. It works wonderful. They should have done it sooner. They don't know how they lived without it. In fact, I don't know how you, still stuck in the time and material, how do you get the customer to pay your bill based upon how long you've been there? How do they do that? How do you show your customer the breakdown of all the parts that you've installed so they can take that list to the home center? And of course, their prices are going to be lower than yours ever could be. In fact, probably lower than what you pay for those parts. How do you justify to a customer how their prices are less than yours? Especially when they're sometimes more than half the amount less. That's tough. And as these home centers, grow around the country, your challenge is going to be harder and harder and harder. You can't show your customer the prices that you charge them for parts. You can't show them the prices you charge them for labor. Nobody's going to understand it, and so you're going to have a problem. And really, the only thing left for you to do is to flat rate. So what is flat rate pricing? Well, it's about the easiest concept to understand. A lot of you use it today. You have stoppages if you're in the plumbing business that you've been flat rating. You don't charge by the hour for a stoppage, do you? How about water heaters? Many, many companies are flat rating water heaters. They've been doing it for many years. Garbage disposals. Furnace replacements. There's a certain amount of money that a furnace goes out for, isn't it? And so forth. Thermostat replacements. So we've been flat rating for many years. We're not really sure where it began, how it began. There's a couple of contractors that I've talked to around the country. One particular back east that from what I understand was using flat rate pricing way, way, way back. He was having some union problems, and he developed it. He actually had a book where he had some prices for his technicians. I'm more familiar in on the West Coast. A large contractor in the Los Angeles area began with it and was very, very successful with it. But the problem that we had on the West Coast was that the price wasn't really based on anything. What we told our technicians was, here's a price book for materials. Here's what our hourly rate is. Now, you go out and figure out what the job should take and give the customer the price before you do the job. Now, the problem you have with that type of system, the kind of flat rating that's being done today without a manual or without a price book, is that the price is based on several things. One, how easy the customer looks. Second, the skin color. Third, the type of car they drive, the type of home they live in, the type of mood the selling technician is in. Or, here's another one, how much money the technician needs to make because he's behind on his bills. Now, I've heard every story, I've seen every price, and the biggest fear that I had was that 60 Minutes or Prime Time or one of the news magazines eventually would call out 30 of our trucks, and do you know how many different prices we would have? 30. As a matter of fact, if they called out just 3 of your trucks on a time and material basis, how many different prices would they have? 3. Because every technician perceives the job differently. Everyone works at a different pace. Everyone uses different parts, right? And so there is no price consistency. And as we learned throughout this weekend is that neighbors do talk. How do you explain to a neighbor why you charge one price and another price? How do you do that and expect to survive in this tough industry that we're in? Well, the automotive industry has been flat rating for many, many years. In fact, they have the special guides that you know about. Now, those guides, though, only recommend the amount of replacement time. They don't attach an hourly rate to it because every repair shop has on the wall, according to the law, how much they charge per hour. And they simply look in the guide that this type of a repair is worth 4 hours, and that's what they charge you for, right? But they still give you a breakdown. They still show you the parts and so forth. And we really don't have home centers that do sell parts at a discount. Now, I know there's some automotive shops, chains that are forming now that are discounting, but we're not in tune to that like we are with the home center. It's so simple for one of our customers to take our invoice, to take it to a home center and shop it. It's so simple. Well, what's the advantages of flat rate pricing? One, you have price consistency. That's so important. You see, in the old days, we used to pay or congratulate or put our employees up on a pedestal and spin them around, those that brought in the most amount of money. Those that had the silver tongue, in other words. Those that could go to a customer and say, hey, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars to do this job, even though the job really wasn't worth that much. Now, you know what it's like to try to sleep at night as an owner of a company, not having any price consistency, not having any prices that were real? They were all made-up prices. And even though you try to control it, and even though you check the time that they spent on the job, and you get in their face and you say, hey, you charge the customer more money, we're going to give some back, and well, wait a minute, you told me to go out and get all I can, didn't you? Well, I did, but you shouldn't have got this much. And so it's really a tough line, tough rope to walk on. Next, it's really tough for technicians to figure out the selling price of a job. A lot of our techs are not professional estimators. And we really shouldn't be making them professional estimators. Their job is to be good with the customer. More than 50% of their talent should be in the selling process. Should be. How to greet the customer, how to sell up by selling down, how to present your product and your service and themselves to the customer. The rest of it is their technical abilities, how well they perform their job, how quickly, and how safe they do it. Next. One of the biggest problems we have in the field is the add-on business. You see, a customer calls because they have one problem, possibly 2 problems. Some of them call when they have a bunch of problems. They wait until their homes are almost flooding, then they call. But most people call when they have one problem. When our techs go out, they just take care of that one problem because it's difficult to go ahead and to estimate the other problems. Using a flat rate system makes it so simple to do the add-on work, because you can show the customer how much less it will cost to have the work done while they're there, while the invoice is open, while their tools are out, right? So much easier to do the add-on business. And of course, that's how you raise your average invoice. Service agreements. We've all learned the value of service agreements, how well they perform, how important they are for the success of your business or even the sale of your business when it's time for you to put the for sale sign up. How are you going to sell service agreements? Well, we can put the tie on and have the salesman go out and do his job and sell it. And like I said to you many, many times before, A service agreement must be sold on the merit of the service agreement. In other words, it must be sold of the importance of you going out to do the safety check, to fine-tune the furnace, whatever it may be. But using a flat rate system, using the difference between a standard rate and a value rate, makes it so easy for the customer to see, for the technician to believe that the customer can actually save money by going ahead and having the work done. It's right there in black and white. It's not some price that they pull down. When a customer asks the technician, how much is it going to cost? The technician should never say, well, it's going to run about 20 bucks. When you go to a fast food chain restaurant and you ask the little intercom, well, what does a burger cost here? They don't say, a couple of bucks. No, it's exactly $1.99. So I recommend that you go back to your techs, and when the customer asks them, what's it going to cost to have the work done, never quote a price without showing it to them in the book. Take the book out and say, Mrs. Jones, let's go ahead and look it up together. Here it is, Mrs. Jones. It's going to cost you exactly this amount of money. Because what you want is you want the customer to see the price in the book. Remove the technician as the salesperson. Let the book do the selling for you. Less complaints. Flat rate pricing will lower your complaints. The number one complaint, 80% of your complaints that you get that have to do in your that appear in your company have to do with price. Customer didn't realize it was going to cost so much money. And like I mentioned to you before, when you are before a judge and the judge wants to know, well, did you tell the customer up front what it cost? Well, not really. Well, what did you base the price on? Well, Your Honor, we quoted the customer $50 an hour on the phone, and, however long it takes. Well, how long were you there for? Well, I was there for 4 hours. And, of course, the customer can go ahead and get estimates from other contractors that could say that the job should have taken 2 hours. But because you worked slow, because you were not technically trained properly, you took longer. And that's unfair, and you'll lose. It's so simple to be able to give this book or a book to the judge or whoever may be the arbitrator and say, Your Honor, this is the book I gave to the customer. Here is the price of the job we did. It's task number so-and-so. And also she needed to have so-and-so done, and here was the add-on price. And Your Honor, if you add those two up, this is the price that's on our contract. And I've given this book to the customer to see. And so the judge will, of course, turn to the customer and say, Mrs. Customer, did you see this book? Did you know the price up front before you had the work done? Well, yeah, but I found it cheaper. But did you see it? Did you agree to have the work done at this price? Kind of like a restaurant. You saw the menu. You saw the price. What's the problem? Because really, you don't have a leg to stand on. If you agreed to the price up front, you saw the price, it wasn't a made-up price, there's nothing to argue about. Next, senior citizens. Now, one of the problems that we have in America today is senior citizens possibly being taken advantage of. I think that's a problem. I don't know if it's a growing problem, but it certainly is a problem. With a flat rate manual or a flat rate system, you can eliminate that because senior citizens can finally be taken care of in writing. They can actually see the price in writing. Home centers, challenging with home centers. When a customer today is supplying a lot of the materials, and you can't stop that, you can't really fight that anymore, they're going to bring their own garbage disposals, faucets. They're going to buy their own water heaters. They're going to buy their own thermostats. They're going to buy their own electrical switches and fixtures and whatever else. What are you going to do? You're going to say, no, we don't install anything that's not supplied by us? You got to get off that high horse because that's going to be a problem. Many, many customers are going to supply materials. We're going to end up losing some of our material sales. So, one of the nice things you can do with flat rate pricing is, and let's just say it's a plumbing faucet. You turn to the plumbing section here, and you flip over to faucets. Oh, Mrs. Jones, this is a wonderful faucet you just bought from the home center. It's the same one exactly that we sell. Wouldn't you know it, huh? Even though the manufacturer said they wouldn't do that. That lasted 5 minutes. Do you happen to have the receipt for that faucet? Yeah, well, I have it in the bag here. Great, because I'd like to go ahead and give you back exactly what you paid for that faucet, plus the sales tax, right off of our flat rate price, right here. Really, you'll do that? Oh, yeah. Now remember, you're going to make the profit off of that faucet, because a lot of times that item that they purchase is less than what you paid for it. Teach your technicians how to use that. That's very important. You should welcome customers to supply their own material. Or you shouldn't welcome them, but you shouldn't make it like that's not acceptable. It is acceptable. It's fine. Of course, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Customer, the problem is that obviously our insurance can't insure this product because we didn't supply it. How could my insurance, insure something that we didn't supply? It wouldn't make sense, would it? I would recommend if you take it back and let us supply it off of our truck so we can offer the full warranty. Some of the things you're going to have to do, obviously, is extend the warranty and do other things so your fixture, your materials looks better, feels better, and has a longer warranty than the home center. So what was the old way of figuring out flat rate pricing? Well, this is how it used to be. Guys used to drive up to the house. In fact, I've been with some of the techs around the country. They used to look at the name and look at the area that they were going to and know exactly how much they were going to get before they even got to the home or the business. So they pull up, check out the customer, check the car, check the house, look around, give it a quick once-over, and then they used to check the problem, and then they used to disappear out into the truck. They used to leave the customer alone. You never leave the customer alone. Go out to the truck and figure it out on some little piece of paper, maybe a little matchbook or something, and maybe I'll get this, maybe I'll get that. Some of them did use a calculator to figure out what it should be. Then they'd walk back in and say, Mrs. Jones, I figured out the price. Okay, well, what's it going to cost me? Well, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars. Here's what I'm going to do. How did you get to that price? Well, now comes the challenge, because remember, everything's easy until you have an objection or a confrontation. So they either will show the customer some little piece of paper where they apply more to the material than the labor, because people don't like to pay for labor. So really they're lying and cheating. It's misrepresentation, which we don't believe in. That's unfair. And if the customer doesn't bite at that price, then they start to do let's make a deal, and they negotiate, and really there is no price consistency. And so what happens is your customers go away. Now that's what gave flat rate pricing a bad name that maybe you know of. Well, the proper way to do it today is to have it in a book or in some format so that everyone charges the same amount, no matter what, who you are, no matter what your name is or what area you live in. It's all the same. The proper way to introduce flat rate pricing to the customer is when the technician walks through the front door, first thing the tech needs to know is where is the paperwork going to take place. Typically it's at the kitchen counter or at the kitchen table. Open up the Winning in the Field briefcase, remove the flat rate manual, the menu pricing book, out of the briefcase and set it on the counter. Encourage the customer to flip through it, because there are things in this manual that they didn't know maybe they needed to have done. They didn't know you did heating, air conditioning. They didn't know that you were in the electrical business. They didn't know all the other things that you do in your company. This is one great way for them to find out. How did it all begin for us? Well, many years ago I was invited to speak in St. Louis, and I watched a gentleman that's actually very successful now in the flat rate publishing industry. He spoke, and I watched people in the back of the room gather and sign up on this particular product, and I looked at it and I thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This thing that he was selling could be improved tenfold. So I came back and I did a lot of research. Who is making flat rate manuals that are to the standards that we believe? See, I believe that everything you do in your business is done in its presentation. The better it looks, the way you pull up to the front door, the way you greet the customer, the way you open your briefcase, the way that you appear, that's what a customer's buying. They're buying the presentation. Of course, they're buying the service and the repair, but half of it's in the presentation. I couldn't find anybody that had a book or a system that presented it properly to a customer. So for 2 years, myself and one other company, we sat Saturdays and Sunday nights and through the nights working on a flat rate system, gathering thousands of tests and formats and ideas and what should we do and how do we relabel the terminology in a book, because we don't want to list name brands, because then they could go to the home center and so forth. we finally came out with our own version of we called it the flat rate book. Well, we had it copywritten. You couldn't copy the pages because if you tried to copy the page, it would say, illegal. We protected it. We had all of our technicians sign it that if they ever lost it, we'd cut their heads off. And so the book got out, and within 2 weeks, it was well known in the industry. And I had a contractor from Colorado come out to see us, and he came through, and he said, and he was a pretty progressive contractor, and he says, Maurice, he says, there is no way that I could be successful in my business unless I have one of your manuals. I said, well, Bill, I can't give you one of my manuals. Those are my prices. And plus, you know, we have it copywritten. You really can't have one. Maurice, you have to sell this manual to the industry. You have to open this up. This is something that we've been needing. So he laid a check on my desk for $5,000 for the one manual. And I said, well, I can't make a decision. I have to think about it overnight. And thought about it. Didn't take too long. Money speaks, right? And the next morning I said, okay, I'll charge you $1,000, and what I'll do is I'll customize the book with your numbers. Because, see, we can't give our prices out. That becomes something of something called price fixing. So we're aware of price fixing. In fact, I worry about price fixing all the time. That's why I encourage you to make changes and to supply us with all the data that you have. So we created his book, and within 2 weeks, or was it 3 weeks, we had 24 systems sold. And so obviously we had to form a company very quickly, and we began Mayo Marketing Systems. We incorporated it in 1992, and then we were searching for a software system that could run this particular method of creating a book, and there was nothing. We called Microsoft, we called a lot of the large publishers or producers of software, and there were none. So we set out, and it was the first time that we used graphics and a database integrated together to create a book that looks like this. There was lots of, you know, word processors that could do it, but it was not integrated. And so we spent 6 months in development, and we spent a lot of money in software development, and we came out with the product. In fact, the product was so good that Microsoft in Washington State contacted us because they were so interested in this concept, and we won an award for having developed a package that does this. Well, version 1 wasn't good enough, and of course I'm never sold on version 1, and I hope you never are satisfied with anything you have, and you always want better. That could be one of my problems of life is, you know, when I get something, I think it could be better. Maybe at one point I'll slow down and accept what I have and be happy with it, but I'm always striving for something better. And so version 2 was in the works for a number of months. We looked at all the problems that we had with version 1. We had a lot of information from our clients. And so now version 2 has become available. So what's in version 2? Well, you see, I believe that customer needs to look at the book and see what they're getting. So now we're adding pictures of the products, pictures of the faucets and the furnaces and the motors and the electrical switches and whatnot that are in the book. Also, I like color. I think color should be used. And so now we have color templates. We don't want it to look too slick, because if it looks too good, it looks too expensive. You've gotten those folders with the shiny embossed silver lettering. Ooh, you know, it looks nice, but I can't deal with the kind of company like that. So we don't want to look too good. We also are changing the paper quality. Paper quality is becoming very thick and very durable. We use a very thin paper right now, but still, because of the way we comb bind this system, it's very, very durable. A lot of people ask, well, why don't you go with the 3-ring binder? The problem with the 3-ring binder is that the paper will tear out easy. Now you can buy the little ringlets, but it still tears out too easy. So you can go to a 7-ring binder. The problem with the binder is it doesn't open up just like a restaurant menu. It doesn't fold back like a restaurant menu. That's the beauty of our system, we believe, over any others, is that it looks just like a restaurant menu. Other things that we're doing. People would like to be able to figure their selling price based on all kinds of different pricing methods. Whether the standard rate and the value rate is a percentage of the labor or a percentage of the selling price. Sales tax treatments, there's all kinds of sales tax treatments around the country, as we've come to realize over these past 3 days. So we have a lot of that built in, and a lot of other information that make it very, very saleable for the customer. Also, one of the things that we believe in is to put your logo scanned into the front of the covers, laminated with some very thick lamination so that it looks very customized to your company. And so that's what we're doing. The other flat rate publishers, what are they doing? From what I know, not too much. There is one company that sells software only. Remember what we talked about, wearing all the hats in your company? Can you imagine what it would be like to try to maintain a flat rate book in your company? Well, maybe you have the time to do that. First of all, you're going to have the equipment, the laser printers, the binding, the laminating, the scanning, and so forth. And once you get past that, do these systems actually print and look and feel like this? See, this is, I believe, an award-winning format because the shaded area is where the tasks are, the primary tasks. The blank area is where the add-ons are. We don't have the add-ons 90 pages behind. No, the add-ons for the section are right there on the same page or a following page, so it makes it simple. Also, in the back, we have the installation guidelines. So not only are your prices consistent, but now the installation guidelines make the job be consistent. This is how we install a faucet. This is how we replace a thermostat on the wall. These, by the way, are tied in with the employee handbook so that if a technician is not doing their job properly, they really can be terminated with no problem. This is a safety handbook. This tells them exactly how to do it. It is not permissible to lug a heavy sewer machine up on a roof without getting the prior approval of the service manager. Why? Well, one, it's going to damage the roof. Two is it's not the proper way of doing it. You're supposed to have a clean out, aren't you? Three is, could hurt himself. You could hurt the machinery. You could hurt something. The sewer cable could end up in a sink, you know, slopping around the walls, ruining somebody's wallpaper. It's not the right way of doing it. And so it says right here, this is what we recommend. These are also a great selling tool. So you tell the customer, Mrs. Jones, I know you probably had it done cheaper. I know the home center can install it for less money. But let me show you something. Look, I have 9 items here that I have to do just to install this one particular product. I can't just slap this in. And you need this. You need this. Teach your techs to use these guidelines as a sales tool. They work wonderfully. If you want to make your own books, go ahead. Go for it. Try it. It'll take you, can't tell you how long, but it'll take you quite some time for you to come up with the task and to maintain it. The beauty is in being involved in a system is that you have 1,000 companies that are feeding our company. We're a clearinghouse full of ideas. Anytime we get a great idea from a company, by the way, we don't work with any proprietary ideas unless you're a franchise. But any ideas you give, I hope that it's okay that we reuse it somewhere else. All you're doing is bettering the industry. We bring it into the book, and it's incorporated. Now, we get a lot of tasks and ideas that are custom to you, and we'll put them into your manuals, and that's just fine. But we don't believe the rest of the country wants to share in those. At renewal time, we recommend that every 6 months you freshen up your manuals. And don't let it go beyond that. Not only because the paper may look crusty and dirty, but because of the ideas. And also, what we have found is that on renewal, that most companies are adding $10 to their hourly rate. They're raising their hourly rate by $10. Why? Because customers aren't complaining, and it's working. So why not make extra money? Some of the items that we talk about in a menu pricing system is that we have lost leaders, such as we believe in the plumbing industry as drain stoppages. The problem with drain stoppages is this. See, I believe that a customer calls you 3 times in their life. The first time, possibly a small problem. The second time, a medium problem. In the plumbing industry, let's say the first problem being a stoppage, the second problem being a faucet or a water heater, and the third time being the large job, the repipe or the gas repipe, or in the heating air conditioning field, it would be a replacement of a furnace or a system. And so why would you want to upset a customer or think that you're very expensive on the first item, the lost leader? Kind of like the Kmarts of the world. They have the blue light special. Where do they keep the blue light special? In the back of the store. Why? Because they want you to travel through the store, and maybe you'll notice something that you need. Well, it's the same thing in our manual. We want to just get into the front door. We just want to be able to do something for the customer that's inexpensive, such as a small